Roop, I hear you spoke to Governor Whitmer there in the state of Michigan maybe a few hours ago. A lot of Michiganders, though, I know from experience, weren't happy that she was at the inauguration.
Things where you talk about the divide that's happened across the country, and yes, in Washington, of course, with the big explanation point being put on what happened on January 6th, and those who defended what happened at the Capitol, those who were obviously very opposed to it on both sides of the political coin. When you take a look at that strife, you're really looking at the epicenter of it in the state of Michigan. When I talked to Governor Gretchen Whitmer, she mentioned right off the bat when I spoke to her that she understands what a divided country feels like, because we live in a very divided state. Millions of people right now are upset at the governor for some of her very strict guidelines that she's placed because of COVID-19. The restaurants in particular, so many of those restaurant owners, they kept getting pushed back with when they could reopen. And right now in the state of Michigan, you cannot go into a restaurant and eat. It is takeout only unless you have an outdoor area. So yeah, there's a lot of people who are upset by this governor. And so yes, there were some people who were upset that she showed up, but keep in mind, Andrew, this governor actually was part of the inaugural committee. So she was tapped by Joe Biden, who Joe Biden thinks very highly, the president does, of Governor Gretchen Whitmer. So much so, of course, as you remember, he actually considered her to be one of the top candidates to vet for VP. Of course, that went to Vice President Kamala Harris, but Gretchen Whitmer's name has been out there. The governor's name has been out there. And because of that, she was asked to be part of the inaugural committee. She helped plan so many of the festivities that you saw take place yesterday. So certainly her being there was no surprise to anyone in Michigan, whether they liked it or not.
No, Roop, definitely. It's interesting to kind of juxtapose that. We took a press conference here on NewsNOW just a couple days ago before the inauguration from LA officials, and Mayor Eric Garcetti was on that same committee. He was another co-chair of the inaugural committee, choosing not to go. So interesting, these decisions that our office holders make. I wanted to ask, though, just as far as the inauguration is concerned, people were expecting protests there outside of the state capitol in Lansing. Didn't really see many of those materialize, did we?
Not at all. And I should mention, by the way, that the governor did tell me in our conversation that she actually only decided to come to the inauguration very late in the game. In fact, early in the week, she brought her two daughters, and they all talked about it. They had a family meeting and decided to go. They thought it would be a good idea. But yeah, the Capitol itself yesterday, the seat of government in the state of Michigan, really empty. I mean, there was just a handful of protesters. At one point during the actual inauguration, when that was taking place in Washington, there were a handful of former President Trump supporters who were out there, and they basically prayed and they protested, but there was nothing violent, and certainly they were outnumbered by the number of law enforcement agents that were out there, including Michigan State Police. So really a non-eventful day. I wanted to mention to you, there's one lawmaker who you're probably familiar with, Andrew. I know you're familiar with her, perhaps other people who are watching this as well. Congresswoman Debbie Dingell. She, of course, represents us in one of the congressional districts for the state of Michigan. She's been friends with Joe Biden for many, many years through her late husband, the late Congressman John Dingell. And she was very excited to be in Washington during that very special day because of the fact that they've known each other for so many years. But she believes that she'll be able to reach across and ask the president for help for the state of Michigan when it's necessary. I asked the governor, the president thinks so highly of you. What does that do in terms of the relationship? Does it help when you pick up the phone and say, hey, I need something in the state of Michigan? She says she certainly believes that is the case. But the biggest thing that she wants, that I'm sure all the governors across this country want right now, is access to vaccines. And that's something that she believes will be sped up because of President Biden.
That's right. I remember just a couple of weeks ago, she asked the federal government for more assistance in the vaccine rollout. I thought that was interesting as well. We saw today, just to kind of maybe talk about Governor Whitmer and possible future aspirations, because we saw today that the DNC elected a new chair in Jamie Harrison to chair the Democratic Party. Do you happen to know did you discuss with Governor Whitmer? Was she a part of that? Is she on any committees at the DNC in leadership roles? Did she express any interest in that?
As of yet, we haven't heard anything about that. I asked her specifically about future roles, perhaps in a cabinet position, as soon as President-elect Biden became it became clear that he was the president-elect. I asked Governor Whitmer a few weeks back whether or not she would consider that. She says no, she's just interested in the job of doing the job in Michigan. But I wanted to also point out that the governor was asked after all of this unfolded if the VP actually asked her, if President Biden actually asked her to be the VP, would she say yes? And she finally inched closer to an answer to say yes. I would absolutely consider it because, of course, in the past she said no, I wouldn't. But when someone like that offers you a position of that nature, you tend to take it. That's for the VP position. But Andrew, I don't know if a cabinet position or even less than that, some kind of a task force position would be something this governor would be interested in. My take in talking to her often is that she would consider some kind of a consultancy role, but I don't know how serious she is about national office at this point. Her name has certainly been thrust into that limelight, but I don't know that she herself wants that unless it would be a big position like VP.
And obviously, Michigan's first female governor, Jennifer Granholm, is up to be Biden's cabinet secretary for the Department of Energy. So we'll be following all of those cabinet confirmation hearings here on NewsNOW from Fox. Roop, there kind of was a lot of news out of Michigan today and in the past few days. If you have some time, I would love to pick your brain just that we have you at the moment. And I want to go back to something that happened Monday night, very, very late Monday night, on the pardons that former President Trump issued. And one of those included former Detroit Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick. Can you kind of explain to our viewers his legacy, what he means to the residents of Detroit?
You know, it's an interesting thing because when you look at Kwame Kilpatrick, how popular he was when he was first elected into office years and years ago, he was charismatic, intelligent, bright, and someone who a lot of people looked at as an amazing aspirant who could do anything. He was kind of one of those magical guys. When he walked into a room, he could make business deals and also change people's votes just by talking to them and shaking their hands. This is not someone who was ever considered to be someone who wasn't intelligent or who didn't have the sensibility to be the mayor. He had all of those on the checklist. What ended up happening was, of course, absolute power corrupting, absolutely. And, you know, what we ended up finding out, of course, once he was charged and he was detained and he was put in jail for the acts that he did, it was taking from the people of Detroit. He owes millions of dollars to the people of Detroit. And I think there's this sensibility that if he, was to come back and if he was able to run again for whatever reason, that all these Detroiters would go swarming behind him saying that they love him. I don't know that you're going to find that sentiment in the city of Detroit. When I hit the streets in the city of Detroit and talk to everyday Detroiters, you don't get that sense. In fact, they're very enamored and they're very happy with the current mayor, Mayor Mike Duggan, who is a white mayor, who is now running again for mayor. He's very popular. I think people wanted their streetlights on. They wanted to make sure no one was stealing from the coffers, and they wanted to make sure they had enough police on the streets. That's something Mayor Mike Duggan was able to do. There are a lot of people who thought that the sentence was too much, 28 plus years to be in prison for those corruption charges. They said that was unfair. I talked to the governor about it. She said, look, I'm not going to put my name on one side of this or the other, but I will say I can see how many people would say that this was an unfair sentence. So certainly there's a lot of talk on the streets tonight about whether or not he deserved to be there for 28 years or whether or not this sentence was too short after being commuted.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that I was kind of noting as well, just how kind of rare it was for a Republican president like Donald Trump to kind of pardon these, infamous, corrupt Democratic officials in states and cities across the country. Roop, thank you so much. I know you got to go, but we appreciate you coming on News Now from Fox, and we'll see you again.
Andrew, I appreciate that. I just wanted to add one note. The person who appointed the U.S. attorney here in Michigan, in the Southeast District, he actually was appointed by President Trump, and he completely opposes what happened with Kwame Kilpatrick, his sentence being commuted. So there's a lot of, you can't just go by party lines. There's a lot of people with a lot of mixed opinions here about this one, but we'll come back and talk about it at a later time.
Yes, definitely good to note, Roop. Thanks so much. Have a good rest of your day.
You bet.
All right, and once again, we want to thank all of our reporters who joined us this hour, bringing us stories from around the country, really interesting ones, to be honest. And my colleague, Daytona Everett, will be coming up here into the anchor chair in just a few moments. So we're going to take a quick commercial break, then find some more live events for you going forward in the late afternoon, early evening hours on this Thursday. Thanks so much for watching. See you back here in 2 minutes on News Now from Fox.